Surprise team of the year. I think there are a number of candidates. This is kind of one of my favorite things to talk about because it's teams maybe we didn't expect a whole lot from at the beginning of the season or have had a couple of bad years in a row. But who is your surprise team for this year?
Mine's DeKalb, which kind of fits your definition of the surprise team. They start off 2-0. They beat Angola. They beat Garrett, who's a tough team now in the NACC. They lose back-to-back games. We played New Haven tough. And then they end that 11-game losing streak last Friday against Columbia City. You know, Coach Pete Kemp really come in there, and his mantra all year has been, you know what, we've struggled previous years, last 4 or 5 years, but I don't care. I mean, that's his thing. We're focusing on 2014. I don't care about losing streaks. I don't care about offers, which they've had some 0-10 seasons. We're fresh, you know, this year, and they proved it. They're 3-2 right now, have a really solid quarterback in Harrison Price. They have a really, Will Chrisman at 6'6", is just a phenomenal wide receiver, a big target for him. You know, all 9 of Harrison Price's touchdown passes this year have gone to Chrisman. So, and both underclassmen as well. So a lot of promise there as well. A DeKalb team that for several years we've looked upon as kind of, you know, okay, they're sitting there at the bottom of the NHC. And now all of a sudden they're competing week in and week out. So they're my surprise team.
Yeah, and they have a lot of good history. Their offensive and defensive line. They have some size there, so there were some pieces. But you're right. Chrisman is practically unstoppable at the receiver position. I think one of the stats you threw out in one of your articles this week, he's got like 80% of their passing offense is going through him.
Yeah, for sure. And Coach Pete Kemp talked about Chrisman and said this is a kid who did not pick up a weight until last year. So with him really working in the weight room and refining his body, not just for basketball but for football as well, he's just such a mismatch, like you said, a 6'6" wide receiver who can catch, and you know nobody's really going to be able to reach above him for balls. So.
And sometimes nobody picks up. Some people don't pick up weights anytime, which is how you get to be here as opposed to being on the Friday Night Highlight Zone or written about in the paper. DeKalb was one of the teams I definitely considered, but I had to go with Eastside. I think Eastside was a team that started off really strong last year by beating Garrett in Week 1, which is a huge win in that train rivalry. But they've picked up where they left off to a certain degree in the fact that Mike Eschbach has had some guys. P.J. Dean is difficult to guard. The Dub kid at quarterback is difficult. They're 4-1, and they've got a win over Garrett by 1 point where they held on a 2-point conversion last week in the fourth quarter, and also a win over Busco, which Busco may be a little bit down this season, but still a big win in their rivalry, in their series. So I got to go with Eastside right now. They're looking really good as far as NECC play goes, and I think that's a conference where we don't know exactly who's going to finish at the top. We assumed Garrett was going to finish at the top of the big division, but Eastside may be the team to beat because we don't know exactly where Fairfield is, who just got beat by West Noble by 20, and where Lakeland is, who are generally some of the usual suspects as far as that conference goes.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Eastside win over Busco, you were like, okay, after a couple other weeks played out, Busco's a little down this year compared to years past. But beating Garrett at Garrett on Friday night was huge. That huge stop, like you mentioned, on the 2-point conversion late. So no doubt, Eastside is really up there in terms of a surprise team.